Ladies and gentlemen, in this RedGamingTech.com video, we're going to be doing a comparison of sorts between the Wii U and the PlayStation 4 and Xbox 720's supposed specs. Now, a few people have asked me to do this video, even though it's not strictly fair, because obviously the Wii U is not really meant to compete graphically, but I just wanted to throw it out there just to give you an idea of how it's going to stack up anyway. And besides, I've been asked to do it, and obviously I like to comply with your guys' wishes as much as possible. So it's worth noting, as I've mentioned before, that the Wii U is not supposed to compete with the Xbox 720 and the PlayStation 4, and I think everyone knows that the original Wii was, well, considered to be very underpowered at the time of release. Now that's not to say it didn't have great games on it, it did of course, and it was a financial success. It netted Nintendo quite a lot of money, and as I mentioned before, games such as, say, the Zeldas and Super Mario Galaxy were really good. Now, with the Wii U, it's too early to know whether it's going to net the same level of success, of course, as say, the original Wii. However, there are some promising games on it at the moment, such as the Wii U, which I really want to play. Incidentally, Spoonie Kipper is doing a playthrough on this channel if you're curious about that game. Anyway, to move on to the actual technical specifications of the console, they have been a marked improvement over the original Wii. The original Wii, for all intents and purposes, was an overclocked GameCube. The GameCube was actually a very powerful machine when it was released and easily beat the PlayStation 2 upon launch in terms of raw power. In fact, the the original Xbox, the Xbox One of course, was the only console that was more powerful than it on launch. The original GameCube ran an IBM Gecko Power PC CPU, 130nm, and was clocked at about 500 MHz, 486 if you want me to be exact, with 43 megabytes of total non-unified RAM, and the GPU was 162 MHz flipper, co-developed between Nintendo and Artex, which was later acquired by ATI, and processed around 8 gigaflops of data per second. Now, the later Wii was somewhat more powerful. It was clocked at 729 megahertz and was reduced in size in terms of the actual die to only 90 nm, and the GPU is similar to the original, however, is built on a 90 nm process and is clocked at 243 megahertz with 68 megabytes of memory. That's 24 megabytes internal, and so it's an improvement over the original Wii. But you can see that it was nowhere near to, actually able to compete with the Xbox 360 or the PlayStation 3 on launch, and that was fine. That's not what Nintendo were doing. And indeed, you can see exactly the same synopsis here. There's nothing particularly different in terms of how the Wii U is designed. It's certainly a marked improvement, and in terms of raw power, it's probably faster, particularly because of the more memory that the console has. It actually features a lot more RAM than the PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360. So what's the actual specifications for the Wii U? Well, this is going to be an abbreviated variation of the spec, just to give you guys an idea. But first of all, it's got a tri-core CPU, in other words multi-core, and that's an improvement to say the least. Now, the tri-core Power PC is apparently running at around 1.25 gigahertz. Now, as for the memory, I mentioned previously that the actual RAM on this console is considerably more. We're looking at 1 gigabyte allocated towards the games, and that's shared between CPU and GPU. Pretty much how the Xbox 360 deals with things. However, the 360 only has 512 megabytes compared to the Wii U's 1 gig. However, there's an additional 1 gigabyte on the Wii U that's allocated only for the system. In other words, that's from operating system only, and the games don't get a look in on this. Now, you're looking at about just under, anyway, 13 gigabytes of total bandwidth, which is fairly impressive. What about the graphics card, I hear you scream? Well, it's been improved somewhat. Now, I did some googling on this, and apparently it's running at 550 megahertz. It's once again an AMD high definition processor. It's called Latte. Now this has EDRAM built onto the die, which, in case you're not sure, is basically to make sure that the console has very quick, rapid amounts of, should I say, the RAM for the console is extremely fast for the graphics card. It's basically acts as a frame buffer. From googling around, it seems to be about 32 megabytes, which is fairly reasonable. So as I was saying previously, this means that you've got a console that isn't shabby, it's not low quality or anything like that, but it's basically built to handle games of the quality of the Xbox 360 and PS3. Now, I'm not going to argue over semantics here. I'm not going to say that one console is 5% faster, because that's basically equivalent to me saying to you the PS3 is slower or the PS3 is faster than the Xbox 360. In reality, the 360 handles certain things slightly better because of just the way the graphics card works, and the PS3 does things slightly better in some cases just because of the distribution of memory and obviously the Blu-ray drive and various other bits and pieces. In reality, the Wii U is going to be able to compete with this generation of consoles. Now this, compared to what we're actually hearing about the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox 720, obviously show the massive gap, the gulf between them. The next generation of, say, the PlayStation, let's go with PS4 just for a moment. The Orbis, we're looking at 8-core CPUs, 8 core for the CPU, shall I say, and depending on the version of the specification we're looking at, there's two arguments. One is 4 GB for GDDR5, another one saying 8 GB, although we're not sure what type of RAM that is, whether it's going to be DDR3 or DDR5. You can see the absolute huge difference. Now we're also going to be looking at the Radeon 7970, the mobile version for the PS4. So in terms of technical specifications, really, it's not, fair for me to compare it. I might as well say to you, what about the Xbox 360 compared to, say, the Xbox 720? That's going to be the kind of difference we're looking at, really, with the Wii U. So did Nintendo make a massive mistake with this? Well, I'd argue probably not. Nintendo are fairly lucky in that, first of all, they have a very large fan base, and second of all, they always produce quality games. Now, one could argue that they want more to be done with the intellectual property they have. In other words, that they want Nintendo to, stop producing Mario games, or at least produce other titles along with. However, no one can, argue with Nintendo's success with this current generation of systems. Therefore, despite the fact that the Wii U, on a very technical, very rough and gritty way, simply cannot deal with the Xbox 720 in terms of the actual, raw horsepower, the Wii U does have things in its favour, such as, for example, a vast library of quality games. It's ahead in the market, in other words, it's released sooner. In some ways, the games will be easier to produce in terms of their expense, because obviously the companies won't have to worry about such high resolution textures and so on for the Wii U versions. Obviously it has its control pad, which has some very unique functionality. Having said that, we don't know what the Xbox 720 and the PlayStation 4's pads are going to be like. There's some very interesting rumours going on with the PlayStation 4 pads, and I'd encourage you to check out my Orbis videos if you want more information on that. So, yeah, the Wii U is going to be a very good console, I have no doubt. It's going to obviously get left in the dust in terms of raw power, but I don't think many of you are going to be surprised by that. So yeah, anyway, I think it's going to be a very exciting time in the console market, to say the least. So anyway, I think that just about covers any questions that, well, people might have had in their comments. So anyway, take care of yourselves and bye for now.